This is Jim Manker with the CSAC Finance Corporation. I'm the Director of Business Development. I want to do a quick shout out to my colleague, Chase Brofman, who is assisting us through a variety of member services issues, but one of those is helping us host this webinar. So Chase, good to have you on board, and thank you for your partnership with us and your excellent work. OpenGov and CSAC Finance Corporation, we have had a professional relationship for about 2 or 3 years now. And we're just pleased and happy to present this webinar on their behalf. They are one of our platinum partners. We have a large number of platinum partners, and that is our top level of partnership. They've been great corporate citizens in the time that we have been working with them. And we're excited to promote this webinar with you. Even counties are doing it. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mark Welch, your speaker, one of your speakers today. And again, thanks again for joining us. And thank you, OpenGov, for sharing with us how you bring value to California counties.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone, for joining. So today, as Jim said, the title of the presentation is Even Counties Are Doing It. And we're going to learn from Tuolumne County, how they modernize their budget process and are leading critical change for the county. I am joined today by Eric. My name is Mark Welch. I'm Director of Solution Architecture at OpenGov. Been with OpenGov for about 4 years, worked with customers across the country, both small to large cities, counties, state agencies. Today, my background is actually all in local government. So I spent 15 years in local government, holding roles in Arizona as budget director, HR director. I was the budget director for the city of Santa Clara, as well as finance director in Capitola, before finally moving on and being administrative services director with Ashland, Oregon, before joining OpenGov. Eric, would you give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, hey, good morning, everyone. Eric Ehrhardt, I'm the Assistant County Administrator for the County of Tuolumne. My background is probably a little different than most when it comes to being in the administrative role with the county. I started about 23 years ago as a police officer with the city of Sonora, and spent about 2.5 years there, and then spent another 16 or so with the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office, working my way all the way through the organization up to a lieutenant before coming into this role as the Assistant County Administrator, which I've done for over 4 years now. Coming into my position, actually sounds like shortly after Mark came on board with OpenGov. And so, it's really been a really unique experience, and I've had the opportunity to see a lot of change and also to affect a lot of change. And this has been a great opportunity to do that as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, Eric. Excited to walk through what you've done for the county. Utilizing OpenGov and other tools to modernize your practices. You have a very unique background, right? Coming from law enforcement as sheriff deputy into your current role. And you're also, just so everybody knows, you're part of OpenGov's customer advisory panel. What that means is Eric is a person that's providing feedback to OpenGov, and it's leading our product development. So OpenGov believes in our customers are the ones that drive our product. And Eric is one of those people that is really driving our product. And you'll see a lot of the areas that Eric has implemented for the county and where he hopes to go today. By the end of today, we have some key learning. So if we do our job well, we want you to get a lot out of this session. We want to look at, how do we improve your budget maturity, both from an internal and external perspective, to engage the community, get more strategic, get more input, and make sure we're spending those dollars, our tax dollars, wisely. We'll look at how the online budget book meets all GFOA award criterias, and how it actually goes a step beyond and improves the ADA compliance of our budget books. And we'll also look at how you can use technology not only from a financial perspective, doing better budgeting, better strategic planning, but we'll also look at how do we improve our permitting and licensing processes, how do we improve procurement through technology. I want to just start and look at, what are the trends that we're seeing in the market. So OpenGov every year does a survey. We want to know what's at top of mind for all of the local governments that we hear from. So this is from 2022, where we got 500 responses, and what we found was 69% of people are taking data from stakeholders and trying to improve how they're budgeting, or how they're actually setting priorities within the county. So 69% of the respondents are saying, hey, I'm using data to try and use it to make decisions. But on the flip side, we also saw that only 20% of those people are confident sharing performance measures, right? So 70% are saying, hey, I'm using data, I'm collecting data, I'm sharing data to the community to get more transparent, to get more data-driven decisions. But only 20% are comfortable sharing performance measures. We're also seeing that only 32% are taking the priorities of their county and applying that towards the budget, right? So we're seeing, hey, people are trying to get better, trying to use data, trying to present data. But when we break it down further, only 20% are sharing performance measures. That means a lot of people are sharing financial metrics, right? Not the performance that shows the outcome of those dollars. And only 32% of those are actually taking the priorities and tying it to the budget. So Eric, does this reflect your experience with the county?
Yeah, I would say this was true for Tuolumne County. When I first came into the office, we used some software and processes that were they were great when we developed them, but as time changes, we have to change also to become more relevant. So this was true. I think we're able to get more data out more easily and share it with the community today. So we've become more confident in in being able to share and show the data that's out there, but also tying that data back to the county's priorities and our objectives, and showing the community that we hear what you're saying, and this is how we're spending our money, or your money, to make sure it aligns with the community's priorities. So yeah, so we've shifted away from this, I think, and we've become much more engaged with the community through the software.
Awesome. So to begin, can you tell us a little bit about Tuolumne County?
Yeah, so Tuolumne County, we're up in the Sierra foothills of California, obviously. A large portion of our county encompasses Yosemite. We have two main rivers that flow through the county, which kind of separate it, but we have about 55,000 residents, and it's roughly 2,300 square miles. So it's a large rural community. Our current budget, with all funds, is about $265 million. And our workforce is about 700, just over 700 employees, allocated positions. Unfortunately, not all of those are filled. I'm sure many people are struggling just like we are with recruitment and retention. So those are some of the struggles that we face, just like everybody else. But we are a rural community, and we're trying to reach as many of our citizens as we can, and we're using technology to do that.
What have you seen change-wise for the county, as well as yourself as a leader, over the last few years?
I think one of the big things that we saw changing was how people communicate, and I think COVID had a big impact on that. It really kind of accelerated the process in which people relying more and more on technology and communicating and doing business through technology, and so we're seeing a big push in that direction, and we're trying to stay caught up and get caught up with that. The vacancies in our positions was also, I think, accelerated through that. We had people that were thinking about retirement, and when COVID hit, they just said, okay, let's go. And so we're trying to backfill behind some of those positions as well. And again, we know that those folks that we're trying to recruit that are serious about coming to Tuolumne County, they want to get information, and so we have to get that information out there to them about the services that the county provides. And this platform has been really helpful in that as well.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the challenges you've experienced in the county and how you're trying to address those?
Yeah, so some of the challenges, but again, being a rural county, and in the image there, you can see that Yosemite takes up a large portion, but that's only a part of it. Tuolumne County is roughly 75% public lands, probably closer to 77, which means it's U.S. Forest Service, BLM, Bureau of Reclamation, And as many of you know, a lot of our revenue comes from, and for most counties comes from property tax. Having over 75% of our public lands, where we don't really collect property tax, it's a huge hit to us. And so we have to find ways to become more creative and be more resourceful with the dollars we do have coming in, because even though we don't collect tax on those lands as much, we still have to provide services out there as well. So that's always been a challenge for Tuolumne County. Our population has remained relatively flat over the years. It doesn't change. There's not a lot of growth. Of the land that is actually available, only about 3% is 3 to 4% is available for development. So we're not anticipating a lot of growth just because of the constraints of the public lands. So those are some of the challenges that we have as we look forward, and we really try to leverage and lean on other things such as transient occupancy tax and sales tax in addition to the property tax.
And Eric, I know your county has experienced some fires over the last couple of years. How has that impacted your operations and how you bring that many firefighters and operations into your community?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Rim Fire was a big fire. At the time, it was one of the largest fires in California. Obviously, that's changed over the years. And one of the challenges I think I mentioned earlier is, and it's not really reflected on this map, but we have two major rivers that flow. One that was right through the middle of the county, which makes it very hard to get from one side of the county to the next. You essentially have to drive around. And so that, those are some of the geography or the topography of the county makes it challenging as well for the community to get to resources that they need.
Great, thanks for that. Moving into budgeting, and this is an OpenGov philosophy or where people are within what we call a budget maturity, right? So we know a lot of people start off down at level 1 and then move into level 5, right? So level 1 is saying, hey, I have a centralized process. When I was with the city of Capitola, for example, that was a very centralized process. It was done all in spreadsheets, and really little input from department heads, no input from the community, right? Very centralized, smaller process. But then what we see is as people start to think about budgeting and getting better with their budgeting process, they move into where, hey, you know what? I'm going to have my departments get engaged with me. My department heads now are taking ownership of the budget process. Then we say, hey, you know what? Let's tie strategic plans to those. What are our strategic plans? What are our goals? Let's start to think about how we get budget towards those goals so the council, our boards, can see that we're making progress towards their priorities. And then we move all the way into what we call optimize, which is we're actually budgeting for those outcomes, right? We're not saying, hey, we're budgeting towards priorities. We're saying we're budgeting to hit an outcome specifically, and tying all of our budget towards performance measures and telling people on a performance metric basis, so we have evidence around what we want to accomplish, and then we can report back what did we accomplish. So Eric, can you talk about where the county was in this cycle when you joined and where you are today?
Yeah, I think 4 years ago when I came into the office, we were in that stage 1, I'll call it, that initial stage where everything was done on spreadsheets, separate Microsoft Word memos were drafted and sent in with those Excel spreadsheets. And then in our office, we would compile all that information. We would use, we had some other software at that time that we were using for budget and finance that was significantly outdated to the point where it would even calculate correctly. So we didn't really rely on that a lot. So we knew at that time that we had to find a new solution. And so as we started working through this process, we engaged with departments and engaged with the staff that were working on the budget to figure out, what is it, that's going to help move us forward and make, not only our job more easier, but one of the things we really wanted to focus on also was getting that information back out to the community. And so when we, like I said, when I first came to the office, it was that, that stage 1. And then we started slowly moving into a process where departments were more and more engaged and decentralizing all that work and getting them more ownership and buy-in on the process.
So you talked about the county moving from a very centralized, no departmental engagement into where you are now, right? Which is more mature, more department input. Have you seen a change in departments' request or departments, engagement during that process?
Yeah, so not only the software that we have, by implementing a software that centralizes all of that work into one place where they can put all their data, it gives us more space and more time to develop the budget. And so we've got the software that we've changed. We've also changed the process in which we budget. And so now once they've done their work, we come together collectively with those key stakeholders in each department. So not just the department heads, but some of the other folks in their organization. And we have this massive budget team. So where we talk about the big picture together, so as we develop that budget, it's not done in a silo, it's done with all departments together, looking at the work that's been done in OpenGov, looking at those charts and graphs and everything else that we can develop, and seeing where our shortfalls are, and making the decision together on where to spend money, where to cut money. So when we go to that board of supervisors, the entire organization can stand behind that budget and say, here's what we've done, and here's how it's come together for everybody. And the other thing that really drives that whole process is early in the year, we work with the board of supervisors to identify the board's priorities and objectives, which really come from the community. And we can link each of those budgets to those priorities and really show that picture of what we're doing. And again, like you mentioned the metrics earlier, is start setting some of those metrics through the software that we want to meet.
So you've made a lot of improvements in your budget process. And one of the things that we notice is we stop doing a process. I like to say, a lot of times we just are running a budget process. We're not putting the thought and the analysis into it. What we see is at OpenGov is best practice is a year-round kind of budget process where we have a plan, strategic plan, goals, priorities. We've developed that, right, as a community and as a staff. And then we have the budget process, which is how do we tie the budget towards it? We report on it, we analyze it, and the whole time we're engaging our constituents, right? Because at the end of the day, we provide services to our constituents. What did your budget process look like when you arrived internally?
I think we touched on that a little bit already, as far as it kind of being the really internal process. Where now with the software in place, it's we're able to put that information, all those tools and resources that are available to us as far as drilling down on the information, really is available to the public now with our data behind it. Because it's their money, it's their data, and so we've taken it from an internal process where all the information is stored internally, and we've made it available. And to the analytic work that you want to do, we've made it available to the public, and we've also tied it to these stories where the public can go and look and see and understand what the departments are doing. So it's not just the numbers anymore, it's really telling a story through the budget process.
That's great to hear, because at the end of the day, budget is the foundation of what we do for the year. And so how is the budget process? You talked about improving internally with your board, your stakeholders. How has that improved the decision-making process for you guys?
I think, with budget, a lot of times the decision-making process is based on the analytics and the history and everything else that we see through that. So one is we can easily access and analyze the data that's in there before, but as I mentioned before, we start the year by saying, okay, here's the board's priorities and their objectives. Here are the things we want to accomplish. And so now in the system, we can link those priorities, or in the system, I think they're called initiatives. We can link those to the budgets. And so later I can go back and look and say, okay, where are we spending on these priorities? And we can tie that information together and show the community and show the public that we are focused, that their budget is focused on the community's priorities.
Yeah, you've been talking a lot, Eric, about improving the process internally, improving your communication. How has all of the tools that you've had made you more efficient? Both existing staff, so people who've been with the county for a while, but also those new people who are joining the county.
Yeah, so going away from the old process where we had multiple platforms that we were working within to a centralized platform where they can put in the numbers, they can put in the narratives all into one place, but they can also pull the historical data at the same time. has really made things a lot more efficient for them as they're developing their initial budgets going forward. And the other thing is the usability or the intuitiveness of the system itself has really helped staff, especially new folks coming on board. As we're all struggling with recruitment and retention throughout the state, we find people to have less and less experience. And so this is definitely a much more user-friendly. I always tell people, when we first came on board with OpenGov, myself and another analyst in the office, once the system was stood up, we were able to create our very first budget without any training because it was just that intuitive and that simple to build it out. It just makes sense. And so as new people come on board and we give them access to their budgets that need to work in, within a half hour, I can have them completely trained up and they'll understand how to work through the process in the system. It's very simple. And so it's really taken that longer process and condensed it down to a much smaller process and much more user-friendly process. And the data that they put in there, we're able to extract and put it over into some of the other stories that we push out to the public.
That's great to hear. What was your key focus when it comes to communicating the budget?
I think over the years, as things have changed, the way people communicate has changed also, and the information that they want. And so we need to make sure that we're reaching out and we're reaching out to our community in the way that they want to communicate. And so this has allowed that because everything has gone so digital today. And we also wanted to make sure we weren't just giving people the numbers. We were telling the story, that here's where your money's going. So really, because for years we always had this big budget binder, I'm sure that most of you did, that had all the line item detail of everything. And what are we telling there? Really, people aren't reading that and they're not grasping what is happening within the county organization. Now we can tie those expenses and those revenues to specific actions within the budget and really illustrate to the community where their dollar is going. And that's what we were hoping to do, is improve that transparency, make it more understandable, not just for the community, but also for staff and the board as well.
That's great to hear. You've made a lot of changes that we've heard about already in terms of getting engagement from your departments, improving how you're communicating to the board, to the community. How did you bring everybody along? We know change management and getting adoption within any government, small, large, is hard. How did you do it, and did you get any pushback?
Change is scary. It's always a little easier when your old process is broken and people know it. So that definitely helps. But, as an organization, Tuolumne County as an organization as a whole really focuses on that high performance organization type of structure where we have this, inclusive leadership style mentality. So when we recognize an issue or deficiency or an improvement we want to make, we bring people in on the front line. The people that are doing the boots on the ground, doing the work, we bring them into the discussion from the get-go and say, how can we improve this process? And so, we brought some of those key stakeholders in for the demo. They got to see the system. They were, the decision makers in the process on, where are we going to go with and where are we going to go next? And so by having that, and then once they actually got into the system and started working through the process and seeing the simplicity of it, it was really a smooth transition, and we've had nothing but positive feedback from our staff and the community on it.
That's great to hear. You provide better tools, better processes. Most people, once they get used to it, are pretty happy.
Right.
You've talked about one of the priorities for the county is improving transparency. Why was improving transparency around your priorities in the budget process so critical?
For one, that's who we serve, right? We serve the community. We have to be transparent. We always, whenever we get pushback from the community on no matter what it is, whether it's, a new program, whether it's, a tax initiative we're trying to pass, the pushback generally comes from a lack of understanding or lack of education. So we have to make sure that we're getting the information out there to the community so they can understand what's going on in county government. And that's going to help build that trust also, and that trust in that what we're doing. And so that was really important to us, is making sure that the community understands what their local government is doing for them.
That's great. And we can see, some examples of reports that you have publicly available to improve that transparency. Have you seen, as you've made a push to be more transparent, provide more information to the community, have you seen the demand increasing?
The demand for transparency.
Demand for transparency. Correct.
Yeah, I think the more we show them and the more we give them that information, the more we're seeing people dive in a little bit deeper into that information. We see people reaching in and pulling these reports, because these reports, like I said, they can look at it at this high level that we see on the screen here, or they can start clicking through some of these charts and get down into some of the actual numbers. And so as they start understanding, they do come up with more questions and they want to learn more.
That's good to hear. I always like to talk about transparency from two different views, right? We have transparency, and the way we're talking about it is public facing, the community, the board, being able to easily get into data, view it, analyze it, dig deeper into it, have a better understanding of operations. But I also like to think about transparency in terms of our internal stakeholders, our department heads, our analysts, the users of our system. And we all know ERPs are not very good at transparency in terms of numbers and trends. Have you seen a change in understanding within the county as well, like your county staff with these tools?
Yeah, I think it's really helped. And some of the things that, one of the small features in the system that really have, staff absolutely love is the ability to itemize account screens. So, if they put training in, or if they put special equipment in, they can itemize what all those things are, so everybody can see where the money's going. But also, it's also a reminder. So when we look back, we look at our ERP system, we see we have this expense in there. We can bump back into the OpenGov budget and see exactly what we, narrowing that focus a little bit more is seeing where the money's going and what was intended for. So it does really help provide that deeper level of transparency within the organization, so people can see, who's going to training, how many people are going, what are we buying, how many vehicles we're buying, and who we're buying them for. All of those things become much more transparent within the organization and for the board of supervisors.
So one of the things we always think about, and you brought up, you have 120 vacancies today, is we truly are doing more with less in government. We have less employees. The demands on us are higher, right? The need for transparency, the need for improved communication, both internally, externally, have increased. And I think COVID and the lockdown and people working from home have definitely increased the demand for information, especially being web-based. We don't want to increase the demand on staff to be able to provide these services. You've talked about the efficiencies around the budget process that you've received. How are people able to self-service themselves in transparency and reporting within OpenGov?
Yeah, so obviously for staff, they can get right in and they can see a lot of it, but most of that data is also available to the public. So where the public used to, hey, I want to see this, I want to see, whatever it is they were looking for, what we've done now is we've been able to point them to the website. We've been able to point them to those stories or the reports that are publicly facing, where they can go find the information themselves. So if they want to see, hey, I want to call up and they say, I want to see, how much tax we're bringing in. What's our tax history look like? They can go right into we can direct them. So we're almost training the public, for lack of a better term, we're training the public to look at the website, because they can get all that same information, which means I don't have staff pulling the reports and sending them out. They can get right to it.
Yeah, and we look at the tables and the graphs, and those tell one story, right? People can dive into them and kind of develop their own narrative. And what we're seeing is the need to take that and put narrative around it. What is it that we're seeing as the trends? Let's help people understand the raw data. One of the things that you did was create an online budget book. So taking the data that was stagnant in a PDF, hard to read, hard to get to, hard to understand, and navigate it. You created an online budget book. What are you most proud about in that budget book?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we really like is the ability to tell the public, what the department does, because we have a lot of, here in Tuolumne County, one of the things we did, pre-COVID was we did all these town halls throughout the community, really for people to come in and meet the departments and understand what it is that each department does. Because a lot of times people will tell us, I don't use county services. And that's really a short-sighted view, because if you drive on a county road, if you go buy groceries and use the scale at the grocery store, or if you get gas at a gas pump, you're using county services, because we have people, if you live in a house, it took county services to get that built through the permitting process. So it gives us a platform to say, here's the department, here's what it, kind of describe the department to some extent, but also allows us to say what they've accomplished this last year with the budget that they had, the challenges they have going forward, and their goals looking forward, and how the budget supports those goals going forward. So with each one of our departments, you can click on those departments and see exactly what it is that you're getting for your dollar, and and the services that they're providing.
That's awesome. How did it work with departments? So you went from a paper-based document. You talked about the PDFs of just line items in the budget. Now you have one that has a lot of narrative information. How did it work with departments to build out this budget book?
The initial build, took a little bit of time, and they were excited to do it because they got to highlight some of the great things that they're doing, right? This is one of those medias that we get to control. When we look at media today, unfortunately, a lot of times the media does not paint the best picture of county government, local governments. They like to publish the negative stories. So this is our media. This is where we can talk about those good things that you don't hear in the local paper on the local radio. So departments really like that. That initial build took a little bit of time just to get their pictures in and all their information. But now it's just a process of updating some of that information year after year. And so they like it. They like being able to point public to that, to show them some of the great things that they're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. The departments are getting engaged and taking a little more ownership in what's provided in the budget book. How did the usability, GFOA talks a lot about usability of a budget book, right? It should be understandable and it should be usable to the public. How did those improvements in terms of usability of the online budget book help people understand your budget and the priorities of the county?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's exactly it. One of the things I really like about going through the development and the implementation of OpenGov is we got to create these stories and tell people what's happening. And later, I went through the GFOA course on I think it was called Budget Beyond the Numbers or something to that extent. But really, they talked about the importance of the story that goes with those numbers. And it was great because it really closely aligned with the usability and the functionality of OpenGov, and it was the things that we were already doing. And so through that process, we're able to, in this example here, you're able to see the past history, you're able to see the budget, and we talk about the accomplishments and highlight some of those things, and really tying it back to that budget.
That's great. So when you think about the department pages, like we have a fire department page on the screen, what is it that you're most proud about that you're able to provide the community in that online budget book for departments?
Right. So every time spending goes up, the public says wants to know what's going on. So here you can see that the final year of the budget there, the expenses have gone up, but they can also look at some of the information here, see what we did last year. If you scroll down through this page, when you're actually on the website, you'll see the challenges and what's going to be coming forward in the next year and what's included in that budget that's driving those numbers up. So, we're not just talking about what we're spending, we're talking about why we're spending it and how it benefits the community. And we're able to illustrate that so they can see the graphic of it, but they can also see some of those great things that we've already done.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. Like a normal budget book, what we would see is that top graph where we just see the expenses going up. And if you wanted to know why, maybe that's 10 pages later. Maybe that breakdown isn't enough for you, right? And then you get public records requests because people want those line items as well, right? And what's one of the advantages of an online budget book is you have this summary data, but you're also able to drill down to the line items within the same chart, which is huge when we think about like you said, meeting your audience where they are, right? A lot of readers, and I throw out numbers like 75% of people who read a budget book want just a summary. They kind of want to know high level what's going on. But we know we have those residents that want to dive deeper into what we're doing. And that's what the online budget book gives you, right? You're able to say, hey, here's high level expenses. They've gone up, but why? Let's break that down a little bit. I want to dive deeper. I want to get down to that, like you said, the overtime number. And we can do that now in one graph. It's not multiple pages of numbers. It's all within one place. So Eric, what improvements are you most, proud of in terms of usability of your budget?
I think you touched on it a little bit right there, is that ability to drill down. So, we're looking at a screenshot of our general fund overview, So the community can just jump right to this page and they can see it. But again, for that person that's a little more analytic, that has more questions, they can just start clicking on some of these bars on this graph and really start drilling down to see where the money's coming from. They can see where the money's going. They can look at the prior years. They can look at the change, by line item, even if they want to, over the years. And so that's just having that information readily available at the fingertips of the community has been fantastic. And then if they have questions beyond that, then they can definitely reach out to us and ask those questions. But most of the time, the public can just get this information that they're looking for right here, and it's easily understood.
And Eric, we actually got a question around how you measure usage of the budget book. And if you do, I'll give an example. So when I was with the city of Ashland, Oregon, we launched an online budget book, and we have Google Analytics behind the scene that we can track how many users we have of the budget. So I took the online format, put that out publicly. We can download, OpenGov can download everything into a PDF. So we still have a paper copy, a PDF version of the budget. But I took that version, the PDF, put it to my website where I normally put the budget book. Ashland, Oregon, about 21,000 residents, so smaller community. But we had over 2,500 unique users of our online budget book. And then I went and said, hey, how many people downloaded the traditional PDF? And we had 3. And so we're able to track it and see, hey, people are asking for a new format of the budget. Have you seen similar results, Eric?
Yeah, obviously in OpenGov, there's the analytics. And so as we get closer to budget time and work through budget, we can see the increased visits and those unique visitors to the website. But we also, in years past, we would produce these budget binders for all the board of supervisors, all the departments. And as we started moving away from that, because we didn't want to just jerk the rug out from under some of the folks, is we started asking, do you still want your budget binder this year? And where we would print, 30 or 40 of these binders in past years, we maybe print half a dozen now. None of our supervisors take them. They all go directly to the website. So, we're seeing less and less demand on paper and a greater demand on the digital platform.
That's great to hear. We all know GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, Distinguished Budget Award is something we all want to meet, right? There's criterias that we all want to accomplish. And if we accomplish that, we're providing the community a good budget book, one that provides information that's useful, dives into a lot of details around performance, description, and narrative. How did your online budget book, how did you create it to get the GFOA distinction?
Yeah, so as I said a little earlier, we developed the budget and we developed the online budget book, and then going through the GFOA course on, really creating that story behind the budget, most of the work was already done. So because of just the platform itself in which we were using, the way we're using it. And so we went back through, and so the first year that we developed the online digital budget book, we submitted for the GFOA award, and we were awarded, and so which was great. And that's been one of the things that was on our bucket list of things to do and achieve that award. And we continue to submit for it year after year and continually improve using the software. But it really was because of the platform that allowed us to tell the story behind the numbers.
Yeah. How did you actually submit the online budget to GFOA?
If anyone's done one of the applications lately, you'll see that it has a lot of questions, but in a lot of those spaces, you're not submitting the paper copy anymore. You're just adding the links into the application, and so they go back through, and as they review the application, they can click on those links and they can go right to the web pages that provide the information they're asking for.
That's awesome. It's great to see GFOA has recognized, online format, a new way of doing budgeting as Distinguished Budget Award material, right? So being able to submit it with the link to your online format is great. I just wanted to highlight some of the key changes. GFOA, about now a year and a half ago, made some changes to their award program. They're now making strategic planning mandatory. So what are the goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Those are now mandatory within the GFOA award program. They also want overview sections, so more summarized data, more summarized changes. What is it that's changing from year over year? Being able to bring in those key priorities and key kind of assumption changes year over year, which is nice in an online format, easy to add in a page of current priorities versus a PDF, which then you're worrying about formatting changes. They're also, we're looking at 3 years of financial schedules. And Eric, I know you have an integration in your data, which means we're bringing in those actuals. We have that data in our system. We have the budget, easy to update year over year. We don't have to worry about the totals footing across all the pages, since it's all in an automated system. We know those are all going to match. A couple other big changes that they've made is performance measures. We talked about only 20% of our 500 respondents to the state of local government survey saying, hey, I provide performance measures. I talked to thousands of governments across the country, and a lot of them are saying, hey, our performance measures are only for the budget book. We send out an Excel sheet to our departments once a year. They come in, update them, and then we just put it to the budget book. And to us, right, when we have limited resources, we start to say, why are we doing that, right? We want to have performance measures that are meaningful, that we can track on a day-to-day basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, to help us drive those decisions. And so when we think about OpenGov and a lot of other computer software systems, is we can get those performance measures into one place, so we can track performance, we can track our financial all in one place, do it in a dashboard format, so it's easy to digest, easy to make those decisions. The other big change, and one that we didn't really focus on as governments in PDF, traditional PDF or hard copy budget books, is ADA requirements. As we become more focused on, hey, we not only do we want to provide information to residents more easily, we want everybody in our community to understand that. And so ADA, using web-based tools, now we have ADA compliance within our budget books. The other thing that we've seen in terms of understanding of our budgets in general is using social media or videos as well, right? So, we talk about, we want all our residents, everybody who wants to read our budget book or to understand our budget, to have that capabilities. Online format does improve it. It makes it more understandable. It makes it more usable for most of the public. But there's people who might not be able to read that want to understand our budget, or and we can have videos, right? So in a paper copy, you can't have a video. Colorado Township, Ohio, they actually have videos of each of their department heads describing the budget. What did they accomplish? What are they looking to accomplish? What are the major changes in their budget? And they're able to do that through a video, and it's within their budget book, which is great. And like you said, Eric, make it meaningful, right? The other key is, how do we take our budget books? And we know I did 15 years of budgets. Every year, all I updated was graphs, changed some narrative, and that was my budget book. They became stale. Nobody was reading them because they really couldn't understand what changed. But being able to make it meaningful, so year over year, someone can pick up your budget book, go to your website and say, hey, here's what's changing within the community, and have a good understanding. And that's what we all want, right? We don't want our jobs to just be running processes. We actually want to be able to provide, meaningful information in a very timely fashion. So Eric, if I shift gears a little bit away from the budget, one of your big strategic changes that you've had in the county was to change procurement processes. Why is procurement such a strategic focus for the county?
This is another one of those things that was not centralized. We were using old processes. We needed to streamline the process, and we needed to make it easier for the folks that were bidding on these jobs, or that were bidding on the services that we're looking for. And so that was one of the things that we really wanted to streamline and bring forward into the our current times. And we were using, again, Excel. We were using Word. We were trying to track all these contracts, and everything was scattered, and it was just it was not very well organized. And so we looked for a platform that would allow us to bring all of that information into one place. Also, a place where Really, I think when this was originally described to me before we came on board, it was, to use somebody else's software, I'll just say it was like TurboTax for procurement, right? It was just answer the question and this RFP or this contract is developed for you. And so you're not having to go through and navigate through these templates. Some of the functionality, we would have contracts that would expire and they would get missed. So we have alerts that are set up now in place. We would always get Public Records Act requests for bidding processes. It's all online now. We can just the public can go view that. We don't have to take those calls and manage those calls anymore. So there was a lot of things these small things that added up to a lot of time that we were looking to save, and this is one of those platforms that allowed us to do that. You're muted, Mark. Sorry.
You streamlined your procurement process, made it more easy for people to bid, make it easier on your staff, improving your efficiency. What are you seeing in terms of metrics around your procurement process?
When we talk about metrics, the process of actually developing the RFP, reviewing the RFPs, reviewing the contracts, because as staff is working on those things, they can only modify certain components of it. So all of our standard language, it remains. And so we don't have to read through and look for changes. We can just look and see what's been updated and what information has been added. So the review process is sped up, the development process is sped up, and we're also seeing more people engage in the bidding process because we've made it easier for them. So they can just, as the contractor or the seller of the product we're looking for, they can just automatically go into the, and answer the questions there and submit their proposal. The other part that is really nice about this is we now have access to every other RFP that all the other OpenGov users have developed. So if I'm looking for an RFP for electric vehicle charging stations, I can go into the OpenGov library and I can look for an RFP that's already been done and just update it to match that scope of work, to match our current needs, and I'm done.
That's awesome to hear. The other thing that you talked about earlier was, people say they don't use your services, but you provide a wide range of services. So we've talked about your financials, your budgeting, being able to communicate the budget to the community, tie your budget, so all the operations that you're doing to a strategic plan. We've looked at your procurement process and how you digitalize that, you streamlined it, you're getting results, you're improving your efficiency, you're improving the opportunities for people to bid on those. You also mentioned that people need permits. You're a very large county. In terms of square mileage. So it's hard for people to come in person to submit for a lot of these permits. Why was it important and to change from a paper-based to an online format for permitting and licensing?
I think efficiency really drives a lot of what we do. With the workforce becoming what it is today, we have to find ways to become more, it's more important today to be efficient with what we have than ever before. And so, like you said, our county, geographically, we're really spread out over the county. And so as a contractor, trying to do development, which really leads to that economic development, we want to streamline that process because that's going to help us generate revenue on the back end. So the easier it is for us to help, the better we can facilitate that for the contractors, the better off we'll be in the long run. So, if I'm a contractor and I'm working on a job up near Yosemite and I have connectivity, I can submit my building permit from the job site. I can look and see where my building permit is in the process from the job site. I don't have to call. I can request my inspection through the website. All of those things can be done electronically now, and I don't have to drive to Sonora to do it. And we use this for a multiple of other functions. Here on the screen you can see people that want to join committees and commissions and get engaged with the county. They can go here and they can apply for one of those committees. Animal control complaints, air pollution control complaints, dog licenses, all of those things can be done now through the website.
That's great to hear. Big change, right? Going from paper to fully digital. How did you drive your people in the community to make this change?
It was really about listening to the community and making sure, again, it goes back to that communicating with the community in which they want to engage with us, right? And so, having those conversations with the community, finding out how can we make the process easier for you? How can we get you to engage more? And this is what they want. They don't necessarily want to come to the counter and do that work anymore. They want to be able to do it from their phone or their tablet. And so that's why it was important for us to do that. And then the other thing is, we spend a lot of money on paper. We spend a lot of money on paper storage. Just in our community development department alone, I think we were able to free up about 12 or 1,400 square feet of office space that was once filled with paper by going to this digital platform. So we were able to take those old files and integrate them into our new system and get away from the paper. So it's really helped out quite a bit.
Wow, that's a statistic we don't hear every day, that you freed up office space by going digital. That's great to hear. That actually brings us to the end of our presentation. We want to leave time if there's questions. You can type them into the Q&A box on Zoom for us. But as somebody, I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin now, and somebody in the middle of winter, I see the beauty of where you are, Eric. What's your favorite fishing spot?
Man, living in the Sierras here, there's a lot of great spots. Usually it's more of a road trip that I take. On the map there, you'll see Highway 4, Highway 89, 395, and back to 108. It's a great big circle where it starts on the west side, the west slope of the Sierras, up over the east side, down through the Walker River, and back home here. But if I'm just looking for a little lake, probably I shouldn't say this because it's not in our county, but Alpine Lake is a great little lake to go out and go fish on and just relax and enjoy the day. But we have a lot of rivers, a lot of lakes, and I spend a lot of time with a fishing pole in my hand.
Oh, that's incredible. And hopefully with some of these tools, we've given you a little bit more time back to go fishing.
I'll take that freedom wherever I can get it.
Awesome. We will stay on and see if anyone has questions. But everyone, thank you for joining. Hopefully this is useful information to everyone. And thank you, CSAC, and thank you, Eric, for joining us today.
Yeah, echo that. Thank you, Mark and Eric. Great job. I've been up in Eric's country. He might say it's God's country, but it's great to see how OpenGov is really helping Tuolumne County, make some just amazing changes, and also just helping them do their job more efficiently and in a more expedient way. So really appreciate that. Very interesting deep dive today with you guys. And again, if anybody on this webinar is looking for follow-up, we have those information, and we'll provide that information for you with both Eric and Mark. And I'm sure they're happy to answer any questions both now and into the future.